Whom the Gods Fear, by Wdowski. Chapter 36. Rubel sat in the conference room with his first officer Matanzama reviewing progress reports of the Polo's repairs when Lieutenant Commander Wdowski entered. "You asked to see me, Captain?" "Yes, Wdowski, have a seat." The captain pointed to an empty chair to his left. "I do not understand why these repairs are taking so long. In addition, I just lost communications with the surface. They didn't just blast the bridge and hyper-engines apart, they disintegrated large chunks of our ship systems. We cannot just simply put the pieces back together again. Entire components were vaporized out of existence as matter and antimatter canceled themselves out. For us to access the backup computer banks, I had to cannibalize our communications equipment that enabled us to stay in contact with the satellite network. Without the satellites, we cannot maintain contact with the surface. Their attack also blew us out of our original orbit. We are no longer passing over their location. We have no idea what is happening to them below." Matanzama asked. "No, we do not. Without the satellites to relay information for us, we are basically in the dark. We also have no control over the helm. So, we cannot even position ourselves in a synchronized orbit above them to have direct communications with them. I need those components to replace the connections to the backup memory banks. Once I have that access, we can get the 3D printers working on the needed elements for repairs." Wdowski explained. "I want helm control up first. Once you get those 3D printers working, we can then at least position ourselves in orbit above them to regain communications. I need to know what is happening to our people on the surface." Captain Rubel ordered his chief engineer. "Aye, Captain." Wdowski stood up, saluted, and left the room. Wdowski was soon replaced with Rebecca Stern. She walked in just as the ship's engineer was leaving. "Captain, I have an idea." "Yes, Ambassador?" He looked up at her, readying himself to leave too. "I had a brilliant idea. Couldn't we use the life pods to go and pick them up from the surface?" she asked. "No," he unemotionally answered. "Why not?" She snapped at him for not taking her suggestion seriously. "For two reasons." He first signed some final orders that he transferred to Matanzama's 4-Armcom. 1. Life pods can enter a planet's atmosphere, but they haven't any propulsion system to escape a planet's gravitational pull to re-enter orbit. 2. The Polo does not carry life pods. "No life pods? What if the ship is heavily damaged?" She was outraged with the notion. "Ambassador Stern, the Polo is a deep space vessel. If she was to be badly damaged in deep space, there would be no place for a life pod to go to. You would just end up dying on the life pod. A cramped life pod with only a few hours worth of air, dozens or even scores of light years away from the nearest habitable world. Life pods only make sense if your ship is part of a fleet or convoy. In the case you had to abandon ship, other vessels could pick up your life pods. As you know, Ambassador Stern, we are out here all alone. Life pods would have just wasted much needed space." She thought about how small her cabin already was. Oh, never mind then. On the 5th day of the march, Demi rode at the head of the column. 6 of his crewmen rode with him. They no longer had the antimatter rifles, but all of them carried side arms that could still punch through amphithar armor. Alongside her husband, Thos-shomaa rode in a polished crimson wood carriage with silver edges and inlays. Thos-shomaa moved aside the lace curtain that fluttered in a large open window of the carriage. Why not join me in the carriage? I need your attention." She reached out her slender, delicate hand to caress his right leg as he rode his mount nearer to her. "Please, Dorwa, my husband, enjoy the rhythm of the ride with me." "Tonight, when we make camp, Thos-shomaa," he answered her. "We will be in a tent at night. I want to make love to you with the motion of the carriage." She withdrew her hand, letting him see her reaching under her open neckline to fondle one of her perfect breasts. He could see that her nipples were firm and erect as they pressed against the ruby-red silk fabric of her tunic. She was driving him nuts. He could feel his manhood challenging his saddle horn. He had to sit in order to conceal from his men how she was arousing him. "Thos-shomaa, please, you know how much I always desire you. I need to set an example to my men and the amphithars. We are on a military march, not a pleasure ride through the countryside." He tried hard to think of the upcoming conflict with Glenn, not his insatiable wife that would not relent in trying to seduce him. At that moment, she began seductively wrapping her tongue around one of her fingers as she watched his reaction from the corner of her eyes. He was about to stop the column of over 4,500, dismount his animal, to climb on board the carriage to mount his woman instead, when calls came out of an approaching scouting party. Duty calls. He kicked into his animal to ride ahead to meet the scouts with 3 of his men. He could feel his heart racing in his chest. She will be the death of me, he thought to himself. Peterson was the most fluent among them in the alien tongue. He translated the Amphirthar scouts' report they just returned from the town near the homestead. They say it is vacant. Vacant. Yes, Captain. Only the district possessor's compound was occupied. They reported that district possessor had only just realized himself that he, his women, and his Amphirthors were the only souls in the town. Where did the people go? Peterson translated Demi's question for the head of scouts. The scout's face was without emotion as he answered. His mount panted heavily after their demanding ride to meet up with the column. They found tracks that lead towards the mountains to the northeast of the town. They followed them for a couple of hours, discovering a large column of only women and children in the distance. Other riders followed fewer tracks towards the farm Jaeger, and his people are held up at. Most of the male population have converged on the homestead, which is now surrounded by walls, a ditch, and coils of wire. Walls? What kind of walls? Asked Demi, clearly disturbed by the news. The scout leader spoke at length in response to Peterson's translation of Demi's question. Peterson informed Demi of his response. His scouts could only make out that they were made of wood and earth. At least 4 meters high, perhaps higher. The ditch before them made them even higher. He says he lost 2 of his scouts from energy weapons when they attempted to get a closer look of the works. Pulse rifles. The one rider that returned alive to him described the hits sounding more like the antimatter rifles. Geez, the other 2 crewmen with them both responded. Show some backbone before these savages. Demi tried to toughen the resolve of his men. 4 antimatter rifles will not defeat thousands of Amphirthars. The men still seemed uneasy with the news. Even their mounts became a bit skittish, as if they could sense the fear in their riders. The men had to pat their mounts next to calm them. Captain, if they have the antimatter rifles, they will fire holes through us. The pulse rifles were bad enough, one of the men stated to Demi. You know damn well those weapons only have a range of 200 feet. We will be leading the assault from behind. We will not be anywhere near their range. Demi assured them. These Amphirthars are bred to sacrifice themselves for their masters. How many of them do you think Jaeger can take out with only 4 antimatter rifles and perhaps 20 pulse rifles at most? Those walls could halt their attack, the crewman replied. Walls put up in only a few days. How strong could they be? The sheer mass of Amphirthar numbers will knock down any walls they hurriedly constructed, like a stampede of cattle through a paper screen. Demi was not going to let this news deter him from eliminating Glenn. If the peasants are going to his aid, it proves what a threat he is to our ruling this world. If we allow this to go unchecked, we may be facing a worldwide revolt that even all the Amphirthars at our command cannot squash. We must stamp out Jaeger and his people now. His men gave a roar of approval to their captain.